Hi everybody, my name's Sandy Beach and I'm an alcoholic. How's everybody doing? It's good to see everybody here tonight. I know we're on the 11th week, but we can still go over the basics in case there's a few people that are new. We're here tonight just to have fun, celebrate sobriety and the fact that we ended up in AA. And the 11th step has to do with God. Unlike all the others, this one has to do with God. If during the meeting you want to get some more coffee, feel free, go back. Need to go to the bathroom, right through the door over here. Also, we got some more of the 4th step inventory sheets. I know each week people come up and ask if there's any more. We got a whole bunch, so if you didn't get one, come up after the meeting and just take one off the stage here. This week we're on step 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And that is a mouthful, to say the least. And I would say of all the steps in AA, this one is avoided once we get this amends made and do our 5th step and all that. This one is probably not avoided, it's postponed. I'm going to get into that meditation when I have some more time on my hands. And besides, I'm staying sober without it. I'm doing fine. I'm chugging along. I've been here 4 or 5 years. Seem to be doing fine. And so there's a lot of discussion in our literature about how this particular aspect of our program is sort of just put on the back burner by a lot of us. I did it for a number of years. So tonight, when we get there, I hope that maybe it'll urge you to spur on and get into it. As Bill writes in the 12 and 12, this is a very individual adventure. This is something that there's hardly any standardized format for how an individual works prayer and meditation into their lives. Like the other steps, there's a lot of similarity. You know, we're 12-step work, we're going out, we're helping another drunk, and this kind of stuff. But in this area, it is a very individual thing, and so it's something that is up to you. There's just no way around it. It is a specific activity, and we'll talk about it, and we'll share what the literature has to say about it. But first, I want to just review what we're talking about here in case there's always somebody new at this meeting. We've been reviewing our 12 steps from the perspective that this plan that these 12 steps have is a plan to improve your life. It is a plan for living that most of us never heard of. I know when I was in grammar school and high school, I don't remember any class called How to Live. You know what I mean? We had math, we had this, we had that, but I never had something like, if you ever get a resentment, you know what I mean? Or multiple choice. What do you do with a resentment? Screw it, you know. That was the only one I knew. And get revenge, that was in there. So I think most of us were kind of left out, and we came up with our own game plan for living, and it was called drinking. That was it. We had a very simple plan. When in doubt, drink. And drinking supplied the energy, it supplied the answers, it took away the fear, it made us feel whole. And so in a literal sense, it was working well. It just had a few defects. Arrests, teeth getting knocked out, nobody wanted to be around us. But we knew if we could fine-tune it a little more that we were onto the right thing in terms of us. And of course, we talked about this, that's what makes us alcoholics, is that alcohol for us fixes all these problems that we have, and for the non-alcoholic, it doesn't. They don't drink and then turn to the person next to them and say, this is the answer I've been looking for all my life. I am now going to turn my life over to vodka, and I am willing to sacrifice everything in order to keep this vodka inside of my body. They don't do that at all. It's a much more casual relationship between the non-alcoholics and alcohol. You know, they live it, take it or leave it. And sometimes they order drinks and leave them. And we watch that and with great amazement that so alcohol is not doing for them what it does for us. So there's little understanding on their part why we would almost die to continue to drink. And that's what makes us alcoholics. There's something special in our chemistry or our mind and all these things that allow alcohol to fix a problem. But the point is that there's a pre-existing problem that alcohol fixes. And that's what our alcoholism is all about. And so the stopping of drinking doesn't help at all. And that's why people are always telling us, why don't you just don't drink? And we just go, if I don't drink, I'm miserable all the time. When I drink, I get a break from all of that. So we come into AA and we go, okay, in here, you don't quit drinking forever, you just quit drinking a day at a time. Well, it doesn't take long to see through that. I mean, people are up here getting 10-year chips. And we suddenly realize they plan on staying here forever. You know what I mean? You just don't quit for a day. I can see it's forever. And in our minds, we just can't imagine not drinking and being in all that pain that sobriety brings for any extended period of time. And that's because we can't imagine that a spiritual transformation is going to take place that's going to make us happy without drinking. Then there's no need for drinking. There's no struggle to fight like it is when we go on the wagon. When we try to do this on our own, we're left with all that misery, and we use willpower to avoid taking the drink, and we're going to endure all this discomfort, and it's just a question of time. We're going to get broken by it. Maybe you could stay miserable for 5 years or 5 years and 2 months, but finally it's just too much, and we just go, I need a break. And we're in the bar, and we're back getting beat up by the alcohol. So this combination of being very uncomfortable when we're sober and alcohol fixing that problem, but then administering another beating in the terms of withdrawals and liver damage and arrests and the loss of self-respect, and we start the downward journey that brings us to a spiritual program. And it turns out that very few people come to a spiritual program on a roll. You know what I mean? Hey, I'm rocking and rolling. I just got promoted. I got a $50,000 bonus. I think I'll seek God in order to enhance the Cadillac that I have. You know what I mean? It's the common thing that most of us have in common is that we're desperate. And that sense of desperate is what's called an open mind. And that's what brings us to AA. And we're willing to listen to things that we never would have listened to before because this is the only answer that seems to be available. So we never take credit for any of this spirituality or any of that. We were driven here. We didn't choose it. We were just somehow singled out amongst all the drunks that are out there to be rescued. And the guy next to you, he didn't get picked up on the DWI like you did. And he's still out there in misery. So we were the lucky ones that got selected through circumstance. Whether our wife is leaving us or the doctor said don't buy any long-playing records, or your boss called you in and wants you to brief your replacement, and all these circumstances that come in. And we are driven into realizing that we have to do something, and we're willing, for the first time in our lives, to take advice from other people. Up till then, we ran our own lives. We didn't need anybody telling us what to do. I do it myself, and our ego loved that. I did it my way. What a great theme song. I did it my way. And we come in here and we finally get broken, and we're willing to admit we're powerless, and that's the secret to come into spirituality. As soon as you admit that, you have admitted that you need a power to take care of this powerlessness. So if you can surrender 100% in the first step, you have gone a long way towards making the rest of your AA journey very easy, because you won't be debating everything. It won't be optional at all. You've already said, I'm totally powerless. Unless this AA program works, I haven't got a chance. So if you have that attitude in the very beginning, all you're doing is eagerly trying to find out what the next thing is that you can do in order to have this transformation take place, so that we have a contact with this higher power. And we talk about that, and we come through coming to believe in a power and making a decision that this will be the top priority in our lives. We're going to turn our world and our lives over. And when we do that, we're trying to become unself-centered. And I think if you were to study all the philosophies of the world and look at everything that I've ever read, it ends up that seems to be the purpose of life, is to try to become unself-centered. And when you do, you win. And you suddenly realize all this other stuff doesn't have anything to do with anything, because you're just a self-centered millionaire who's thinking of blowing his brains out. Or you're on Skid Row thinking of blowing your brains out. But nobody has achieved happiness through these other ways that we get told about all our lives. Wear these sneakers, you'll be happy. Wear this T-shirt, you'll be happy. Wear this, and it lasts about a minute, and it's already old. I need something new. It's wearing off. This Mercedes is wearing off as I'm pulling out of the dealer. Where is something substantial? And we find out in our very simple program that the answers to all of these great human questions come to us as we work the steps. So we make a decision to turn our will over, and then we go through the process of finding out that we can't turn anything over because it's blocked. We just made a decision to get it turned over, but we have a lot of work to do, much like someone who made a decision to get a PhD. Well, that's a great decision, but it was a commitment. And now come the years of hard work. So we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over, and we find that our character defects, our instinctual drives, which are controlling our lives, are blocking us from having any contact whatsoever with a higher power because we're totally self-centered. And the only way to get unself-centered, as we talked about, is to become God-centered. That's the only solution to that dilemma. So we learn about these character defects as they come from sex, security, and society. Those three major areas that all of us have to try and resolve this conflict that's going on in our lives. We're all born with this. You didn't collect this on your own. Everybody's born with this. The question is, what are you going to do with these energy forces that are driving you crazy? And the logical thing that all of us came up with, whether we're from street smarts or college smarts, we came up with the intuitive logic that the only way to have these demands stop harassing us is to meet them. We got to get enough money, enough sex, and enough power so that those demands stop bugging me, that I don't have financial security. Well, I got another $20,000 in the bank. Uh-oh, that doesn't work. Must be $40,000, and then I'll have financial security. So we're out chasing these, trying to satisfy all these things that are driving us crazy, whatever it is. And we come in the program here and it says, you can never get there doing that. No matter what you accomplish, the demands will just go up higher. The spiritual answer is, we can put you in touch with a power that will reduce those demands down so they're not bothering you. They will be down so they're simply supplying the energy so that you function as a human being, and they won't be in charge of your life anymore, which means that you will be able to pursue other avenues, such as doing a higher power's will, giving rather than receiving, because your needs will have been taken care of inside. And most of us looked at that pretty skeptically. My needs are going to be taken care of inside. I don't think so. Well, alcoholics should be the last people to doubt that. You remember what happened when we went to the bar? I mean, we went in there, we're all screwed up, the world's terrible, I'm terrified, I don't have enough money, I just have half the rent money, what am I going to do? 3 drinks later, it kicks in, right? And you say, are you still worried about all that? Hey, man. Why worry about that? Live a day at a time. That's what I say. The rent's not due till tomorrow. Buy my friends around here, man. That money will show up tomorrow. I'm not going to be worrying about that. And we're just sitting there like we've been transformed by a power greater than ourselves called vodka or whatever your drink was. And so we are very familiar with having a transformation from the inside out. It's just that was the wrong higher power. It had serious bad side effects. But the program is going to offer us that same kind of transformation. It's just that it won't happen as fast. So it takes faith and patience and the realization that there's nowhere else to go. Those all combined really help keep us going. And a mean sponsor is also a very good, very wonderful asset to have. Keep hitting you in the head. pushing you along, and then later on you can take credit for it. No, then I decided to really get spiritual. So we finally reluctantly go through the inventory of these blockages, and that's what these character defects are. The biggest problem with them is they block us from our higher power. That's like being cut off at the bar. You're in the bar, but nothing's changing. You know what I mean? We've got to have contact with this. And so these character defects have to be inventoried, shared with somebody else, so all the secrets are finally out. We're much more comfortable in the world. And then we look at these middle steps which talk about the goal of spirituality, which is perfection. And we shy away from that at first, and then we realize, no, we're going to have to really look at this and try and get entirely ready to have these defects removed, all of them, by this higher power, and that we're going to humbly do it, which means that it's going to be painful as we get rid of self-centeredness in every area of our lives, and that we're going to be looking for the rest of the time that we're alive for things to get rid of. What else am I wrong about? Where else do I have a crappy attitude? Who else am I prejudiced against? Who else don't cut any slack? Who else do I hate? What else is wrong? Because all of these things are what are making us experience pain. And so it has nothing to do with the outside world in one sense. It has to do with making us comfortable, and then it transforms the outside world because we're different people to deal with. And people like being around us, and they're attracted to us, whereas before they ran. Uh-oh, here he comes. Let's get the hell out of here. I don't want to listen to that anymore. And so this is what happens in step 6 and 7, is we suddenly realize we're not going to settle for limited amounts of perfection. Bill writes in the 12 and 12, we tend to settle for as much perfection as will get us by, and that is certainly not turning our will and our lives over to the care of God. So we make every effort that we can to involve a higher power in as many areas of our life as we can. And our ego is blocking every step that we're trying to take in this direction, so it becomes a struggle. So we go to meetings, we share with one another, somebody else say, yeah, I had the worst time getting over the anger about that. I tried this. And we just share with each other because we're all trying to go in the same direction. And we're not trying to beat anybody. Nobody's ahead of anybody spiritually. We're all in the same boat. So we're just sharing things that have worked for us. And it's just amazing how constantly going to meetings, rereading the literature will help us move in this direction. Then in order to clear up the wreckage of the past, we make an inventory of people that we've harmed and go out and make these amends that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And that frees us up from having to live in the past and being afraid that we're going to run into Joe or Mary or the bank president or the IRS or whoever it might be that is causing us to think about things that happened in the past and be filled with fear all the time. And we came up last week into living a day at a time and living in the now. And that's really what the 10th step was all about. How to go through a day, just a hypothetical day is what we talked about, but then we try to make that every day. And we pick this day and we suddenly are led to see that the point of each day is to stay undisturbed. I always thought it was to get ahead, or to make some more dough, or to do all these other things. But from a spiritual perspective, the point is we just go about whatever's on our plate that day, but we're trying to stay as a top priority, staying undisturbed. And we talked about self-restraint to take with us during that day, about an honest analysis of what's going on so that we can see if it's somebody else's fault. When a conflict comes up, we forgive them. Why do we forgive them? Because we want to get undisturbed. That's why. Very simple. I don't want to stay disturbed, so I'm just going to let you off the hook. And I remember my old rules were off the hook without wrecking his car or something, just off the hook. Yeah, why? Because I want to get undisturbed. I'm not interested in all those old ground rules. They didn't make any sense at all. They just got me in trouble all the time. And then if I determine that the fault is mine, I'm going to make an amend right away. I want to get this thing fixed as quick as possible. So whenever I'm wrong, I want to promptly admit it. Come right back over. Hey, I want to say something, Jim. What I said was off the wall. I want to apologize for it. I don't know where it came from. I'd love to start over again. Can I buy a cup of coffee? And how you doing? And just, whew, we do this because that is the next right thing to do. This is a plan for going through a day involving our higher power all the way through this that is very, very powerful. And what I forgot to talk about last week in this day at a time thing, when this is done, you know, there's that little 24-hour day book, and in the front of it there's that Sanskrit proverb, look to this day, for it contains all the verities of life. I can't remember it, but it talks about why today is so important. And if you were to imagine in your mind that, those of you that are new, and when we're new we have to imagine this, because it hasn't happened yet, but if you could imagine like a perfect day, where you just went along and nothing bothered you. You just went through and you were happy in the morning, you were reasonably nice to the people in traffic going to work, you were nice to the people at work. You just did your work. It wasn't anything big deal, it wasn't anything. It's just nothing happened to get you upset. And you had lunch with some people and the waiter was slow and it didn't bother you. Well, so he's slow, you know. And then you went back and a couple of emergencies came up and you just handled them. And then you went home, and there you were with your family, and they were all done. It was like, yeah, well, they're just being themselves, and you're just letting them be, and then you go to bed and you sleep well. That's a perfect day. You see, you don't win the lottery in spirituality. You just have that kind of a day where you're very comfortable with yourself and with what's going on. Well, when one of those days happen, it's incredibly powerful, and I'll tell you why. Because we spend most of our time regretting the past and being afraid of the future. And when we have one of those days that I just described, in order to think about the past, we have to go through that day first. Because that's the most immediate past. And we just go, oh, that past. Well, let's look at it. Well, the first part of the past isn't too bad. You see what I'm saying? It already has changed our past, just that one day. Yeah, there was all that other stuff, but there was this day here. And I was all right there. And it has a whole different effect on the past. And then the future that we're so afraid of because we're going to have thousands and millions of days like the ones where we're all screwed up. All of a sudden, when we look at the future, we go, well, what would a future of 1,000,000 days like that one I just had yesterday be like? That would be cool. So the fear of the future can be greatly reduced, all by packaging this into one day. Because if one day is possible, then a whole bunch are possible. Suddenly we have a whole new idea. You know, I could go through life in a wholly different situation. I am not locked in to being a jerk for the rest of my life. I might actually get free from myself. I did it for one day. Who said maybe I can do it for 2? And we have all of a sudden a sense of optimism just from the power of one day well lived. So to make that a goal is a wonderfully healthy thing. That sort of sets up the 10th step, where we're going to constantly inventory. And you know, as I was reviewing the literature tonight, I couldn't help notice how similar the 10th step in the 12 and 12 is to the 11th step in the Big Book. And they are really remarkably the same. And there's really no discussion in the Big Book about meditation. It sort of just talks about going through a day, trying to stay close to our higher power, getting up in the morning, sort of imagining our day, which is what the 10th step talks about in the 12 and 12, and then during the day looking for opportunities when we get disturbed to see what our problem is, like the spot check inventories out of the 11th step, or out of the 10th step in the 12 and 12. And so these things are almost meshed together. And in the 12 and 12 on the 11th step, Bill writes about prayer and meditation are very, very powerful, but when they are combined with an ongoing inventory, it is awesome. And so this constantly looking at what we're disturbed about and combining that with what we're going to talk about in the 11th step turns out to be a remarkable way to incorporate a healthy day with getting closer to our higher power. Now in the 12 and 12, which I think when Bill wrote that, like 12 years later, 11 years later, after the big book, I think he probably saw, I never really did discuss meditation or prayer. I discussed about them, but I never really talked about the technique or what it really means. And so when you get into the 12 and 12, you see prayer and meditation have had a hard time of it in our society. We're very skeptical about it. We have a lot of arguments. We look around and we go, look, I can believe that there is a power, but I find it difficult to believe there's a loving personal power that I could get in touch with. And the ego, of course, is involved in this, and he writes this sentence that I think many of us may have seen, that our ego does not want us to try seriously prayer and meditation for fear that it might work. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, because if it worked, then you'd be wrong. Because you've been saying it wouldn't work all these years. Oh, I'm going to try that crap. I can tell you that. What, I'm going to sit on the chair and go, hoo, hoo, hoo? I can tell without even doing that. That would be... Well, what if you did it and it worked? You'd look like a jerk. So let's not do it. And, how many guys... I just relate to that. And that's right, man. Never do it, man. Don't even hang around people that do it, because you might end up doing it. And you're going to look bad. They're going to look at you. They're going to say, hey, meditation's working for you? Aren't you the guy that said that crap would never work? Ha, 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 ha. Now, we don't want to be laughed at, so we're going to stay miserable. I'm not going to try that. So it's that, Bill, he must have gone through the same stuff. That's all I can think. He must have been just like us. What? I'll say the Lord's Prayer at the thing. I'll say the Serenity Prayer. During the meetings. Then I'm out of here. And in the morning, I'll go, pup, 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 and a couple of seconds, nobody's looking, I'm gone. At the end of the day, I got a little thing, I'll look back over the day. Thanks, God, appreciate it. Okay. Man, those damn bucks, I can't believe it, Where were you, God? Did you hear me saying that? Hey, God, let him catch that pass. All right, thanks a lot, God. He wasn't there, right? So he's not going to be involved in anything personal. We're not going to do this. So there we are, scientists of our own lives, and we don't want to conduct this experiment because it might prove our pet theory wrong. So it just depends how long you want to stay in that state. And I don't know what the record is in AA, but I was around 7 years, and I'm sure there's people up around 20 years. Who could say, no, I'm not going to get into that yet. I'm going to just hold off another decade. And when I can't move my knees anymore and I have to sit on a chair all day, all right, then I'll give it a shot. And I got nowhere else to go. So Bill suggests, I got to time this out right, a certain prayer when we are considering meditation. And it's called the Prayer of St. Francis. And what I want to do is read it so then we can just think about it. He's just saying, okay, you don't know anything about meditation? Well, then here's one way of looking at it. Here's a man who for several hundred years now has been rated as a saint. He was not an alcoholic, but he did, like us, go through the emotional wringer, which he did. And he came out the other side of that painful experience, and this prayer was his expression of what he thought he could see, feel, and wish to become. And so here's the prayer. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love. That where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness. That where there is discord, I may bring harmony. That where there is error, I may bring truth. That where there is doubt, I may bring faith. That where there is despair, I may bring hope. That where there are shadows, I may bring light. That where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek to comfort rather than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds, it is by forgiving that one is forgiven, it is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen. So we get those beautiful words, and one of the first things that occurred to me when I read that was, I never thought of that stuff. That's what occurred to me. As I look back on it, I never remember me naturally as I walked into a day. Hey, God, let me bring some light over there where it's dark. Let me bring some joy over there where these people are sad. It was like, where's mine? That's what my mind does. So these words are taking me to places that I didn't know about. That's what happens with these words. It has us thinking thoughts that don't come naturally to self-centered alcoholics. And if we took a show of hands, I'm not going to do it, I would have a hunch, we'd all agree that you weren't sitting around thinking these thoughts on your own. Oh, I can hardly wait to make me a channel of thy peace. I can hardly wait for that. And you're broke and you're going, oh, I just want to help somebody today. That's what I want to do. And so what happens is we're lifting our mind to a different level. And the whole point of spirituality is to lift our mind up to the intuitive level. That's what turning our lives over to the care of God means. It means that we're still the channel through which everything comes, but what comes through that channel is entirely different. So by taking our mind up to this level of thinking, where we're saying these thoughts that are, when I read them, I'm inspired by them. And part of me is going, God, I wish I had thought of those. Those are awesome. What a wonderful picture that is. That here I am trying to bring light and bring comfort into all that. I love that feeling. That's the real me. And I submit to those of you that are new, that's the real you. We've just never been able to get in touch with it. That's who you really are. That's why it connects. There's a whole part of you that is sick of being selfish. You're just sick of yourself. And we respond to this so wonderfully because we just go, holy cow, could that really be? And so these are just great words to lift me up to a place that I'm not with my own thinking. I'm down in the gutter. I'm down there just, And this is taking me up so that my intellect may be good, yours may be better, and the guy in the back row may be more wonderful, and the gal up in the front row with a PhD, her intellect may be up to here in terms of being able to think and see problems and all that. But none of those intellects are as high as our intuitions. This is what God's will. As it comes through us, it comes through at the intuitive level. But the intuitive level is blocked by self-centered noise. I'm thinking about myself. And this signal is coming in. This wonderful signal of how to have peace of mind, of how to function in the world, the same things that St. Francis, that came to him, would be coming to us if we could hear it. But we're not at that level. We're down into the, I need a Cadillac level. I need the Cadillac, I get the Cadillac, I'll go meditate. You got to take care of yourself. I can't take a day off and meditate. I got problems out here. And this signal is beaming right in. It's a spiritual guidance signal from our higher power. And it's just going, everything is fine. You can relax. I've got it. Just sit back and enjoy the day. You don't have anything else to do. Just relax and enjoy. And we can't hear that. We can't become aware of it. We can't have contact with that type of signal unless we're willing to try something like this, because it only comes in at the intuitive level. So how do we move from the intellectual level, where we're problem solving on our own, to this level? Practice. You know, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. And that's what this involves. And I remember the first time I tried meditation. Okay, I'm going to try it. What do you do? So you read a book, you go to a library, get a book. There's no AA-approved literature on meditation. It's an individual adventure. I'm going to read something later on. It's not AA-approved literature. But it has to do with meditation. So anything that we read is going to be appropriate for us. You go to a library, you just look under M, meditation. All right, I like the green cover. Take that one home. You don't know anything yet. You don't know what's going to be your favorite. It's just like, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? Well, you got to try them all first. And then you found something that you particularly connect with. And so I remember taking a book home, and it suggested having a candle. It suggested a certain way to sit, and it suggested a lot of things. A little music playing over here. And I sat on that chair, and I want to tell you, I started sweating bullets. It was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I am not comfortable doing this. I am having an anxiety attack. It's just breathe calmly, and I'm breathing like, I mean, it was like, whoa, enough to make you want to quit. And it reminded me of, did you ever go take a foreign language class? And then you're there, and you learn a few words, and then they go, okay, now say hello to your friend. Hola, Pedro. And then he rattled back something. What's your answer? And you go, and you feel terrible. I mean, this you don't know what you're doing. You want to quit the class. I mean, you got 2 words. That's it for you. I don't want to participate in this anymore. It's too bizarre. But then we come back 6 months later. You're sticking with it, and you're throwing out stuff and saying poems and doing all kinds of things. So it took practice. And so don't be put off by the first thing that happens. The book suggests that we just take this Prayer of St. Francis and reread it several times slowly. Just sitting there thinking about this. Just look, you think about football, you think about sex, you think about this, you think about that. Think about this. What we're saying is set about some time. Think about these. Buy spiritual books, read a paragraph, and think about it. That's not it. That's just what we did today. But it took us to this level. This is where we want to mine. You know what I'm talking about? You're going to mine gold. You've got to find where that vein is. You've got to find the opening, and then you get into it. So this is going to require practice. And what I thought I'd do tonight is this will take about 3 minutes, is read what is called a guided meditation. And so for this, just sit on your chair and just see how this affects you afterwards. Just get as comfortable as you want and put your feet on the floor. Sit up straight, take a couple deep breaths, and I'm just going to read some stuff, and then you can see the effect that it has way inside of you. This is called a guided loving kindness meditation. Sitting comfortably, allow the attention to come gradually to the breath coming and going all by itself deep within the body. Take a few moments to allow the attention to gather within the even rhythm of the breath. Turning gently within, begin to direct towards yourself care for your own well-being. Begin to look on yourself as though you were your only child. Have mercy on you. Silently in the heart say, may I be free from suffering. May I be at peace. Just feel the breath breathing into the heart space as we relate to ourselves with kindness and care. Allow the heart silently to whisper the words of mercy that heal, that open. May I be free from suffering. May I be at peace. Allow yourself to be healed. Whispering to yourself, send wishes for your own well-being. May I be free from suffering. May I be at peace. Repeat gently with each in-breath into the heart. May I be free from suffering. With each out-breath, may I be at peace. With the next in-breath, may I be free from suffering. With the following out-breath, may I be at peace. Repeat these words slowly and gently with each in-breath and each out-breath. Not as a prayer, but as the extending of a loving care to yourself. Notice whatever limits this love, this mercy, this willingness to be whole and to be healed. May I be free from suffering. May I be at peace. Though at first these may only feel like words echoing from the mind, gently continue. There can be no force here. Force closes the heart. Let the heart receive the mind in a new tenderness and mercy. And as you sense in your heart sense this whole world that wishes to be healed, to know its true nature, to be at peace. Note to yourself, just as I wish to be happy, so to all beings. And in your heart, with each in-breath and with each out-breath, whisper, may all beings be free of suffering. May all beings be at peace. Let your loving kindness reach out to all beings as it did to yourself, sensing all beings in need of healing, in need of the peace of their true nature. May all beings be at peace. May they be free of suffering. May all beings to the most recently born be free of fear, free of pain. May all beings heal into their true nature. May all beings know the absolute joy of absolute being. The whole planet like a bubble floating in the ocean of your heart. Each breath drawing in the love that heals the world, that deepens the peace we all seek. Let the breath come softly. Let the breath go gently. Wishes of well-being and mercy, of care and loving kindness, extended to this world we all share. May all beings be free of suffering. May all beings dwell in the heart of healing. May all beings be at peace. And that ends the reading. And we can just sort of come back. We still got 5 or 7 minutes to go. And that's something we can all take home with us and just look at what kind of a reaction we had to that. Is that something that we might incorporate into our lives on a daily basis in some fashion? So that talks about meditation. Now to finish off the step, I want to just talk what Bill has to share about prayer, because he has a very interesting thing to say about prayer. And prayer is lifting the mind and heart to our higher power, getting it away from self. And prayers are wonderful because the people have taken the time to write some wonderful prayers. And the point of reading those is to take our mind where it wouldn't normally go. But the 11th step has an interesting wrinkle where it suggests that we pray only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And it helps us avoid a lot of traps that happen when we begin a relationship with prayer, which is to pray for a job, and then we don't get it. And then we conclude that prayer doesn't work. Or prayer that I'm going to win the lottery. Or prayer that my mother doesn't die from this fatal illness. And then my mother dies and I feel like prayer doesn't work. And so a lot of it is our ego getting involved. That we have decided what's best for ourselves and we're going to pray for it. And we've decided what's best for somebody else and we're going to pray for it. And so it's always wise to add to any specific prayer, as suggested by Bill, if it be thy will. If it be thy will. Because a lot of times we're praying to get this job and we don't get it, and we get a better one. And where would we be if our prayer worked? You know what I'm saying? We would have gotten... So this idea that if we can operate at the highest possible level, the intuitive level, and then pray, and we will see that's an entirely different picture. We're praying for well-being, we're praying for peace, we're praying for healing. This is a noble thing that is just an energy that is sent out, but it's not being specific. And this can avoid a lot of disasters. The other thing I would say about spirituality and prayer is talk about it with other people. Talk about it with your sponsor. Sometimes we get into praying and meditating and we feel that we have received a certain guidance. And it may be our ego just going, hey, I'm going to play a joke on this guy. He's sitting here in the quiet of the room. I'm going to disguise my voice a little bit. Hey, Fred. Yes, God. Move to Dallas. Wow. And we believe it. And then we're getting some furniture and we're going down to Dallas to take a look around for a job, and people are asking us, what's the deal? Oh, I got this guidance to just go to Dallas. And this might be something to talk over with someone. You know what I'm talking about? How long you been into meditation? About an hour. About an hour. I mean, you see what I'm saying? We're fairly new at some of these things, and we're dealing with the mind, and we're dealing with trying to quiet the mind. Because what we're trying to listen to is beyond the mind. We're trying to go beyond this racket that is in our heads all the time. It is, you know what it sounds like. Your mind has been saying the same crap to you for 25 years. You're no good. You're a piece of crap. That lady over there is better looking than you are. This lady over here. If they really knew me, they'd hate me. I know I can't cook. My children hate me. And then the guys have all the same macho things. And it just goes on and on and on. And so meditation is really a very practical way to attack this problem that all of us have, is to get freedom from that mind. I think I talked about it before, that we don't really want peace of mind, we want peace from mind. We just would like, could you shut up for a while? And until it shuts up, we can't hear what's beyond it. You know what I'm talking about? It's like our higher power has arrived and has something very important to say to us. Oh, higher power, you're going to say something important? Yes, I am. And our ego and our mind is going, don't listen, don't listen, don't listen, don't listen, don't listen. And then when it gets quiet, the message isn't there anymore. I mean, it is that simple, that what is going on there has to be stopped. It is like your mind is a stage. And you remember the hook in the New York theaters? I remember that. And the act would come out and the audience didn't like it. And it's a great big hook. And they just yanked the act off the stage. It didn't even get a chance to finish. This is what we'd like to do with our brain sometimes. It's up there, you're rotten, you're no good. You'd like to get the hook and just yank them off the stage. This is what prayer and meditation is. When we were reading that, when we were talking about the prayer of St. Francis, and our minds are involved at this level, this much higher level, that other stuff can't get in. It just can't get in. This is too powerful of thinking. And so I just leave you with that thought, that you are worth it. You are worth changing your mind about this whole subject of prayer and meditation. And I think that's what that guided meditation of Stephen Levine was talking about. Act as if you were your only child. How would you treat yourself then? It turns out we treat ourselves like an enemy. We're so mean to ourselves. We're meaner than our enemy is to us. We don't give ourselves respect. We don't give ourselves kindness. We don't give ourselves anything. We're chasing things that are going to make us happy. What's going to make us happy is when we're good to ourselves. Then we're going to really see what a wonderful person we are, but we don't think we deserve it. None of us, when we come in here, think we deserve to be nice to ourselves. What a stupid position that is. I don't deserve to be nice to myself. Meditation is one of the great ways to be nice to ourselves, to finally treat ourselves to dessert. You know what I mean? This is it. This is as good as it gets. So it's up to us as individuals to take a look at this. I hope that some things that I've said tonight have helped us change our mind. We are precisely at the end of the hour, so we'll stand in place and wrap it up with the Lord's Prayer.